Attention, attention, stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. Paige, thank you for the super chat. She says, I can doctor any email anyone sends me, and heck, I may have the laptop here in Philly. Who says I don't? That's true. I can't. The Washington Post, the New York Times, nor I can prove or disprove that Paige has the laptop because they've never laid eyes on it, and neither have I, and neither have you. Act in our chat sends a $5 super chat that says, that was so rude he could launder an extra $2 million for his boss. Right. That was just to flow it through. They probably loaned it back to him through Deutsche Bank. Like, while you're over there, can you launder an extra $2 million? And Rocky Mountain Mike, thank you so much for pass the puffer on the left-hand side. We were discussing it on Stephanie Miller's show. Yeah. I know. That was the first thing that occurred to me, as they were telling me the dolphins get high on pufferfish story on Steph's show yesterday, which was a good time. And thanks to everybody again who came to the Sexy Liberal show. Now, in relation to that, I asked Johnny Million during the break, what the number one job that came back, what added more jobs than anything else?
Yeah, and I didn't know.
Retail and hospitality. Leisure and hospitality, followed by retail. Leisure and hospitality. People are going out to dinner. People are going to, staying in hotels for business and travel.
Cruises.
Resorts and cruises, exactly. They're the ones coming back. And because of the amount of herd immunity that we have from natural infection and the amount of vaccine people and the availability.
Yeah, which industries were hurt more than those during the lockdowns?
Those are the ones that were essentially collapsed first.
Yeah.
Followed by professional and business services, hence the hotel travel, one would think, and retail trade, which again is the one that's supposedly hurt the most by the energy crunch we're in right now. And now I'm not saying that once Trump lost, there's a case of emergency break glass plan that America and the West's adversaries have, where they choke oil supply on their own and try to raise the price until they get people favorable to their methodology back in office. I'm not saying that's a strategy. I'm saying that if I was an awful person and I ran an awful country, I would insist on it. That's what I'm saying. Right? Now,
and that's because you're a method actor.
That's true, yes. If I ever played a dictator, it would be a long and arduous process. I would have to rise to power through some sort of violent coup, maintain power for far too long, fade, after the international sanctions drove me into exile. And even though I had killed half of my own population, die comfortably in my bed in a villa someplace in the middle of nowhere.
That's a red carpet speech I want to hear.
Fat and happy, right? Yep. That's why it's difficult to method actor a dictator. Although it'd be, as far as the emotional traits, very easy for some actors to do. Some actors, and I've heard this under good authority, could pull those kind of roles off simply because they sort of live a diva-esque lifestyle and are under the impression that they have the right to physically attack people for stuff that they say. I don't know if there's any validity to that. And I certainly hope not, because that would be reprehensible behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But I am saying that it's potentially true. Now, speaking of losers, vicious
I'm listening.
Losers who, habitually lose. Speaking of people who can't stop losing. Oh, Daphne, thank you for the super chat. She's and it's really hard to keep it lit underwater. Johnny Million is not only smart and sexy, but dang funny too. Be still my heart. Look at that.
Daphne.
Carl says, don't abuse pufferfish. One of them could be Martin Scorsese. So, speaking though of absolute losers. Donald Trump.
Bingo.
The news on his story, the news on his White House, because apparently at one point he was in the White House in control of all of the levers of power in the greatest democracy on the planet, and was technically, and I quote, the leader of the free world, with, irony and air quotes galore. Mm-hmm. There was this 7-hour gap in the White House switchboard call logs. Now, a lot of folks were making the case that this could be indicative of they destroyed call logs, or they worked around it, or there was subterfuge.
What I thought.
Right. Well, that's certainly possible. The more likely case is that they just didn't use the switchboard. And it's kind of one of the most amazing aspects is that nobody did in the Oval Office. Because during the January 6th, because, there's been stories about burner phones. Maybe he uses that. He pretended not to know what one is, which is just ridiculous. You had John Boehner coming on and saying boner phones, which was just beautiful on, I believe, CNN, which is not the same thing, for the record. If you have a boner phone and the battery lasts more than 4 hours, see a doctor. But apparently, some people are making the case that, maybe he's involved in sort of subterfuge. Maybe he's, they tore up the logs or hid who he contacted and all that stuff. I find the most suspicious part being that during that 7 hours, nobody else was using the switchboard from the Oval Office. That effectively Trump is alone. This is during the time when he filmed the video, which hopefully we will get the outtakes of. Apparently he shot that video. We love you. You're very special. Now go home and be proud of the chaos you created today. That he apparently did that a few times and wouldn't tell them to go home, which is they had to do it again.
Force him to do that part.
Yes, they had to tell him. They had to force him to get him to tell them to stop. And if the January 6th committee reveals anything that will be damning in the eyes of the American public more than anything else, that will be the sign that here's the multiple outtakes of this dummy trying to not say leave the Capitol and go home. The one he released was bad enough. This is also worse. Okay, but my personal belief is that it isn't strange that Trump didn't use the White House switchboard to call anyone, because he was avoiding calls from his own children. Apparently, they were having to call other people to reach him. He was watching the television and gleefully enjoying the fact that some of his followers would, invert Jim Jones themselves on his behalf, right? That Ashley Babbitt would take a bullet for him was a gleeful moment for him. And he was amazed, apparently, according to reports by a lot of the people that were around, who mysteriously didn't use the switchboard during that time. I think that's the part that's screwy. The part where the rest of the people in the White House weren't from the Oval Office, from the outer office, and any of that. But the idea that there's fresh reporting in the Daily Beast that Donald Trump's White House iced out official record keepers in the days leading up to the January 6th Capitol riot. Multiple sources with knowledge of the congressional probe into the attempted insurrection told CNN Trump's presidential diarist was interviewed by the House Select Committee about 2 weeks ago and said Trump officials began providing noticeably fewer details about the president's activities starting on January 4th, according to the outlet. Beginning on January 5th, the diarist didn't receive the annotated calls and notes they normally get. And this was a dramatic departure. That is all out of the ordinary. Under normal circumstances, the White House diarist is privy to phone logs, the president's movements, and all notes from the Oval Office. From the 4th to the 6th, they stopped providing those details. Jeez. Because they knew they were up to some hinky stuff. If it was just the 6th, that's one thing, right? Because they're like, this is horrifying. Maybe we're embarrassed. We don't want to talk about it. The fact it was the days leading up to it presents a knowledge of criminal activity, an awareness of guilt that's more spectacular than just them hiding from their own shame or everyone trying to hide the president's missteps on the 6th. We'll take a break. We'll be back after this. Yeah. You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. Also, the show is available on the Sexy Liberal Podcast Network. They cut it up into little hour-long chunks, which I think you could probably
and Foggy Mountain or Foggy Ozark seems to think that you found a pufferfish filter.
Yes, I did. No, I'm just puffy from being up late. We'll be back.
No.
This is the Hal Sparks Show. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
You know,
the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Some stuff you just gotta watch the live stream for, and you can always watch it later. It's okay. You can enjoy us on WCPT.
Yeah, if you're listening to this on the radio, it is worth going in about 35 minutes to what's going to be posted on YouTube.
Something
tougher, Hal.
In that zone somewhere in there is something worth being around. I'm just saying. Andrea, thank you so much. Did we get it? Yes. Thank you for the super chat, Andrea. And everybody will let me know when we have 666 people in the chat so that we can freak out the right-wingers by doing 666 super chats when that becomes appropriate. Every day, it becomes clearer and clearer that like moron Watergate, for lack of a better phrase, gets clearer and clearer every day. Like, we know this was all a setup. We also know that all the stories about the Hunter Biden laptop or anything even remotely related to that, and the strong arming of Zelensky, withholding funding for javelins from him, specifically knowing that if they did it long enough, the White House could delay the receipt of javelins to the Ukrainians by almost a year.
Javelins?
Yeah, these are
pretty archaic. That's a very analog kind of weapon.
Well, it's the anti-tank weapon that has turned the tide more than any other factor.
You're not talking about like the Olympic javelin?
No. Although I do hear that the Russian javelin catching team is going for the gold this year. But it becomes increasingly clear that the whole point behind the Rudy Giuliani flying to Ukraine to give in person the real ask of Zelensky and his team from the president as his unofficial cabinet member, but his personal lawyer is going to go there and speak to a foreign leader and deliver a personal message that's without translators present, without any official government note takers present, because he is not an employee of the government. In the same way that Ivanka and Jared could go to the Middle East and make deals on behalf of themselves and the president, make hundreds of millions of dollars, and strong arm these countries as semi-official representatives of the president of the United States, insofar as, well, if you don't play nice with these guys, I'm not going to like it, but not as actual functioning members of the government that go through all those channels. That Trump tried all these things while he was in office. And thank God he stunk at it. Thank God the coup was run by morons. The cover-up was run by morons. The plan and the planning and the tactics, everybody involved in this, top to tails, fish stinks from the head. Trump was a complete idiot. continues to be this day, which brings me to, of course, the fact that Johnny Million has more followers on Truth Social than almost any other person on Truth Social. And I know what you're thinking, but Johnny Million's not on Truth Social. Exactly. Truth Social has to be, without a doubt, the biggest dud in the history of social media. Donald Trump's own...
I haven't heard about it at all.
Right. The use of the site is down 73 to 84%, depending on who you talk to or don't talk to, in the first 2 months of it. The desire to be on there in yet another right-wing echo chamber after there's already Parler, there's already Gab, there's already Telegram has turned into a right-wing cesspool of garbage. There's already Getter. Oh man, come on now. Get her done. And the fact that how could Truth Social fail when it's being run by former right-wing congressperson and note carrier from congressional Republicans to the president, and I guess low-end subterfuge moron Devin Nunes. I recall, and I'm sure you do too, Johnny Million, the idea that Donald Trump ran on the government is full of idiots. All these career politicians are morons. They don't know anything about business. They don't know anything about trade. They don't know anything about ISIS. Donald Trump knows this, and he knows all the best people. The best people. The best people. Hashtag the best people. And when he gets into office, if we can have a flashback to 2015/16, all he's got to do is tap these super smart people on the shoulder, and they're going to join him in the White House, and not so they can become, oligarchs themselves and just ratchet up their influence, not because they can't stand him, but oh my gosh, to be that close to the levers of power. Not because the Louis DeJoys of the world run an alternative to the post office that's business would improve greatly if no one could use or trust the post office anymore. Not if they were Rex Tillerson, who'd received like the best buddy of Vladimir Putin award for how pally-wow he was with Russian oil and gas industry, that he could continue to do that even though he refers to the president himself while working for him as an effing moron. But still the best people.
In the chat said they're all the best people until he asked to say I've never met them.
Oh, yeah, that's the other aspect. They are the best people until they screw up royalty, and then they were magically referred to him by somebody else, by other best people. Really knew them. He comes very well recommended. Everybody really very respected person. The storyline of effectively typecasting. A lot of people, Hollywood gets a bad rap. And certainly in my industry and my end of things as an actor, people complain about this all the time. Typecasting. Oh, it's terrible. I swear, you're on a series playing a doctor. The next 3 shows you're going to get offered is playing a doctor again. That's how I can only play this same, I'm never going to break out of John Boy Walton unless they make another Country Boy series where the lovable 70s dude with the mole on his face and the friendly demeanor. I'm never going to work again because typecasting. Meanwhile, projects cost millions of dollars. It's hard enough to get anything off the ground. There are, thousands of projects that never see the light of day every single year because they can't even start. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the casting phase. Are you going to go, I don't know if this actor is believable by an audience playing a doctor on this one role, but I think we should take, a chance at it. What do you think? What do you think we gamble on him? Or the guy, Doogie Howser's available. What do you think? We've got 6 cast members of St. Elsewhere who are available now. We could go with one of them, or we could go with this guy who was great on this other show, but I don't know if he can play this, but let's let him stretch. What do you think actually happens? So right. Is typecasting rough to deal with? Yes. Is it strange or weird? No. And you'll often hear the phrase central casting. Guys, right out of central casting. Central casting, by the way, is the
Guilty.
extras.
I say that all the time. Whenever I see something that's so hilariously cliche, I'll be like, that dog is out of central casting.
Right. Well, Trump often refers to people who are perfect for the job as, especially when it's about being TV ready, as right out of central casting. Mostly it has to do with macho dudes. If you notice, it's generals. Or
blonde women.
Nope.
No, macho dudes?
Macho dudes, like none of the, I don't think I've ever seen him refer to, and he may have, but he usually does not refer to women as being right out of central casting. What he means is TV generals, TV politicians, men, largely men. Because to him, who would cast a woman in any of these roles? You know what I mean? Like, think about it. Who are you talking about? And so when he says this, what he means is they look good on camera. They've got a name that sounds like, oh my God, H.R. McMaster.
That sounds great.
That sounds great. And look at him. He's got a face that looks like it's cut out of granite. He never stops scowling. He looks like a human Sam the Eagle. Hired. Can he do the job? I don't care. Is he good at it? Does he agree with your policy, sir? Who doesn't? He doesn't. And by the way, what do you mean agree with my policies? They follow orders. That's the great thing about civilian control of the military. I don't have to listen to them. As a matter of fact, if they come up with something I don't agree with, it's even cooler that I'm telling this granite-faced Sam the Eagle macho dude from Central Casting what time it is. Look at me. Anybody could agree with their generals. I'm just going to and I will. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they tell me at any moment this will affect my polls, my poll numbers, if they tell me my poll numbers will take a huge hit to get out of Afghanistan, we could just punt that till I'm not running for election again, which is exactly what he did. So, yes. So Nevitz Forever says, Hal, are you describing Ginny Thomas's hiring-firing policies? This is one of the craziest parts of the Ginny Thomas story. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to discuss that. Because, wow. The fact that Ginny Thomas is the wife of a sitting SCOTUS justice, but is bad enough. The fact that she was in a cult when she was younger and she's effectively straight up QAnon now, disturbing enough. The fact that her husband says yes.
She's in a cult?
Oh yeah. That's the one where everybody strips off their clothes and everybody judges everybody. It's a long story. That's bad enough. But apparently she was part of Jan 6 and was part of this. Do you have people around you, Mr. President, who aren't loyal? We'll be back right after this. It's the House Park Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more. Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
You know, a lot of things have happened in the last 24 hours. I was on stage last night wearing nerd glasses, singing Van Halen songs. I drove all night just to get back home like I was in a Bon Jovi song. Just to get back home. I was momentarily a pufferfish on the show today at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks.
It's been a big day.
Yeah, it's been and Johnny Million and I traded stories about a guy who burps viciously in viral videos by hiding himself in places. And yet nothing is on the crazy scale like the stories around Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, who, among other things, apparently funded buses going to the January 6th insurrection, is full bore Q at this point, believes anything that comes out of Rudy Giuliani, even if it involves a violent expellation of gas, and which is just a horrifying notion. And apparently, among other things, she wanted to protect Donald Trump from disloyal people around him. She was worried that the people in his White House weren't sufficiently loyal to him. They should be sort of, they were acting like around the Vindman era, they were acting like they had a job to do and took an oath to the American people and not to der Fleeter. So she was upset that they weren't giving him sort of Genghis Khan level loyalty. That they were under the impression that while they served at the pleasure of the president, they served the American people, which of course to Ginny Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, is nonsense. And if Trump doesn't technically have the ability to Putin these people and drag them out of the room with a bag over their head and have them disappeared, they should at least fear that that's a possibility. And P.S., let's understand that there is no reason to believe that she doesn't tell Clarence Thomas this all the time about his staff and the people that work with him around the Supreme Court and his security detail. I mean, it's okay. So Rolling Stone has an article. Ginny Thomas pushed Trump to hire someone the White House suspected was a foreign spy. The wife of yes. The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas gave the former president, quote, insane and unworkable lists of people he should fire and hire, according to a new report from the Daily Beast. Now, understand she's giving him hiring and firing lists. And Trump has recently said that one of the things he's going to implement when he gets back in office, he's been bringing this up at rallies, is the fact that he should, as president, be able to hire and fire anyone in the federal government by fiat. Because that's the only way you're going to get rid of the swamp and the deep state, if the president, as an executive decision, like the CEO of the entire federal government, can hire and fire people at will. Which, by the way, if you don't think some, right-leaning Republican, that if Rand Paul ever had a shot, because Ron Paul's his dad and there's still a big swing of libertarian-esque Republicans out there, if you don't think he wouldn't get in there and go, if I could fire one of them, I could fire all of them, right? Mm-hmm. That basically gutting the federal government wouldn't be the order of the day and would give the Russians something to strategize towards. Ginny Thomas regularly met with Donald Trump while he was president, often providing him lists of people whom he should hire and fire, one of which the White House suspected of being a foreign spy. The latest turn in the MAGA unmasking of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, who we learned last week sent a series of text messages, we talked about some of those last week, pressuring Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to work to overturn the 2020 election, comes by way of the Daily Beast report published Friday. Now, this is... and like we all knew that within there were people, staffers in the West Wing, among other things, knew their afternoon would be ruined, and Trump would be worked into, quote, fits of vengeful rage. A fit of jealous rage. We all knew that within minutes after Ginny left her meeting with the president, he would start yelling about firing people for being disloyal. When Ginny Thomas showed up, you knew your day was wrecked. Now, I think that's probably true everywhere. You know what I mean? People,
not just in the White
yeah,
House.
no. People at diners, dry cleaners, people like at Hobby Lobby. Ever since she became a welcome guest at Trump's residences, Thomas, an influential and longtime conservative activist and the wife of Clarence Thomas, had perfected a proven formula of enthralling and manipulating the president's emotions and mood. Again, she was in a cult. Life something. You'll look, Johnny. You were just looking at the article on it.
I never saw the name of the cult.
Yeah, it was one of those like 70s, early 80s cults. And so no surprise that she has the mentality that tips her towards this unless you actively, I suppose, work. I guess it could be like an addiction like anything else. Had perfected, on multiple occasions throughout the Trump era, Thomas would show up in the White House, sometimes for a private meeting or a luncheon with the president. She often came armed with written memos of who she and her allies believed Trump should hire from plum jobs and who she thought Trump should promptly purge, that she distributed to Trump and other high-ranking government officials. The fire lists were particularly problematic as they were frequently based on pure conjecture, rumor, or score settling, where even steadfastly MAGA aides were targeted for being part of the deep state. And some other supposedly anti-Trump coalition, the Never Trumpers or the new Never Trumpers or the Ever Trumpers who become Never Trumpers. Because as we know, when the communist regime rolls in, the loyalists to the party who started the whole revolution are the first against the wall. That's you got to wipe out your true believers because those are the people who will judge you the fastest and the most, right? And so it's no surprise that even in MAGA world, that's how it works. Mm-hmm. The higher lists were so often filled with infamous bigots and conspiracy theorists, woefully underqualified names, and obvious close friends of Thomas that several senior Trump aides would laugh at them. That is, until Trump would force his staff to put certain names through official vetting process. 3 sources familiar with the matter said. And these have got to be public record at some time. I mean, we have to. Now, Ted Cruz was allegedly on one of his SCOTUS lists. And by the way, there was never a chance where Ted Cruz is going to be SCOTUS or be president. That's not happening. Ever, please. But there's reason to believe that Trump would put him on that list just to troll him. You know what I mean? Yet another way to let him get his hopes up and smack him down. Let him get his hopes up, smack him down. Like that seems like a kind of cruel.
That's a game he would like.
Yeah, somebody would suggest, like Stephen Miller would suggest this to the president, and he would just enjoy it at the time. These effing lists were so insane and unworkable. These memos would astonish various administration officials, including those working in the White House Presidential Personnel Office, the PPO. Some of these officials noticed that as the Trump term went on, the Thomas list would increasingly feature a disproportionate share of names more suited to an OAN guest lineup than any functional government. To be fair, well before Ginny Thomas became a recurring visitor, Trump would routinely hire people because they had entertained or excited him via Fox News and other cable news appearances. I would say to the Daily Beast article and the writers in that increasingly it became the bottom of the barrel. What used to be, we'll get the hot people off of Fox. Kudlow, we'll bring in Kudlow. He had a show on there. He'll be our econ guy. He'll talk about the budget and stuff to people because he did that on Fox and he could do it in the White House. Then, which is to be expected from how Trump operates. Again, the central casting. Again, the perception of the public versus an equality, aspect of being capable of doing the job. However, as time went on, Trump finds himself being interviewed around the outer colon of the internet that is OAN, RSBN, Real America's Voice, Bannon's War Room, and that kind of stuff. And it's no surprise that as that starts to degrade, as far as him, he can't call into Fox like he used to, except Maria Bartiromo's Sunday show, because she has to. Everybody else doesn't want him on unless it's something they can curtail and they can say goodbye to him, they can cut him off. But in the White House, they were like, I don't need to talk to this dude. He's already there, and he's not, especially after he lost, magically, he's in a situation where, the only people he's really watching that totally believe his nonsense are on OAN, are on Newsmax, are on Right Side Broadcasting, and these other super right-wing sites. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide now, with 100% more Johnny Million. Of course, you can subscribe at infotainmentwars.com to our YouTube page. That helps us out immensely. Also, twitch.tv/HalSparks. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. You can subscribe over there. It's a great way to support the show, or not at all. Also, patreon.com/HalSparks, because that's how we gear ourselves up. Thank you so much. We'll be back right after this.